Picture waking up at dawn to the earth-shaking roar of 10 bulldozers rolling into perfect formation around your house, blocking every driveway, every gate, every escape route while your terrified chickens scream and your horses bolt in panic. Standing there like some discount dictator with a megaphone is Meredith Lancaster, my HOA president, shrieking about an emergency health crisis, while diesel fumes choke the morning air and my 12-year-old daughter Lily watches our animals suffer behind a wall of yellow steel. This psychotic woman thought she'd found the perfect way to steal my grandfather's 12-acre heritage homestead, right out from under us in the heart of evergreen meadows. She had no clue I'd just been quietly appointed to the county zoning commission with the power to bury her entire corrupt little empire with one phone call. What would you do if some clipboard-wielding Karen literally held your family's legacy hostage with heavy machinery? Drop your zip code below. I need to know how many of you are still fighting these suburban tyrants. Let me take you back 3 months to when this nightmare first put on its fake smile and designer heels. I just inherited this slice of heaven from Grandpa in suburban North Carolina after a brutal divorce left me with more debt than dignity, and less trust in people than a politician at tax time. 12 acres of organic garden beds, free-range Rhode Island Reds, and 2 gentle Clydesdale rescues that had been grazing these pastures since before most of these cookie-cutter McMansions were even blueprints. The morning mist still rolled over the fields like clockwork, carrying the sweet smell of fresh hay mixed with my first cup of coffee. You could hear the gentle clucking of the hens scratching in the dirt, the soft snorting of the horses shaking dew off their manes. My boots crunched across the gravel driveway every morning at 5:30, same routine Grandpa followed for 40 years. Just me and Lily trying to rebuild after her mom decided finding herself meant leaving us with medical bills and memories. Here's where the universe decided to drop a Karen-shaped grenade in our laps. Recent county rezoning, the kind that happens when developers start waving cash, meant our little pocket of heritage land now technically fell inside the new Evergreen Meadows HOA boundary. We never asked to join their beige kingdom of matching shutters and zero personality. Enter Meredith Lancaster. Picture a real estate shark cross with a mall cop who won the lottery and a clipboard. 50-something, blonde hair sprayed so stiff it could deflect bullets, driving a white Escalade that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. Recent transplant from Charlotte, married to some developer whose business cards might as well read, "Destroyer of anything real." She got elected HOA president in 6 months flat, campaigning on property aesthetics, with the enthusiasm of a cult leader and the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The first attack came on a Tuesday that started peaceful and went full clown world fast. Meredith click-clacked up my driveway in heels that had clearly never seen actual dirt. Clipboard clutched like it was the Holy Grail. "Mr. Caldwell," she announced in that syrupy voice she saved for peasants, handing me an official-looking violation notice. "This antique machinery disrupts the visual harmony of our community." She was pointing at Grandpa's 1952 John Deere tractor, the one that still ran better than her husband's shady developments and had more soul in its rusty exhaust than her entire subdivision. Then she declared our metal roof barn an aesthetic emergency, requiring immediate correction. The woman actually used the phrase architectural terrorism to describe a building that had survived every hurricane North Carolina could throw at it for 8 decades. The kicker? $500 daily fines until we achieved full compliance with community vision standards. When I politely reminded her our homestead had been feeding this area long before her HOA kingdom existed, she flashed that practiced politician smile, the one they use right before they stab you in the wallet. I spent that night buried in agricultural protection laws and grandfather clause paperwork until my eyes felt sandblasted. The HOA covenants had some conveniently vague language about exemptions, like someone wrote the rules planning to exploit every loophole later. Being a reasonable guy who still believed in adult conversation, I called Meredith and suggested we meet face-to-face like neighbors who share the same zip code. Her response: treating me like some backwoods hillbilly who couldn't possibly grasp concepts like property values and community enhancement. My next-door neighbor Dolores, sweet 70-year-old who'd lived here since Nixon was president, pulled me aside after witnessing one of Meredith's performances. With the wisdom of someone who'd watched small-town politics for decades, she whispered, "That woman's got friends at City Hall, honey. This isn't just HOA games. She's playing for something bigger. The stakes hit like a freight train. This homestead was my only income after the divorce cleaned me out. Lily had fallen in love with gathering warm eggs every morning, brushing the horses, learning that real work builds real character. We still had Grandpa's medical bills staring us down, and hiring a lawyer for prolonged war felt about as realistic as asking NASA for a weekend on the moon. But Meredith had miscalculated one crucial thing about families like mine. We might be polite. We might try reason first. But when someone threatens 3 generations of honest sweat, we don't roll over. We get creative. We get organized. And we sure as hell don't surrender without making the local news. 2 weeks later, she escalated like a Karen who just discovered the manager's home address. She filed a formal complaint with County Code Enforcement claiming our agricultural density violated residential rules. Apparently too many animals living too close to her precious suburban paradise. The timing? Pure evil genius. She scheduled the inspection for Lily's 12th birthday party, because nothing screams neighborly love like traumatizing a kid on her special day. The inspector who showed up was her brother-in-law, Dale. Coincidence level. Finding a unicorn in your garage. Picture 20 kids running around with balloons, vanilla cake scent mixing with hay dust, Lily giggling as her friends petted our gentlest horse. Then Dale crashes the party like the world's worst surprise guest, ready to steal childhood joy one citation at a time. These chicken coops appear to be unpermitted structures, he announced with theatrical authority that would have impressed Shakespeare. He was condemning coops Grandpa built in the 60s, structures that had weathered more storms than Dale had probably seen weather reports. Here's where Meredith's master plan slammed into Grandpa's obsessive record-keeping. The day after inheriting, I'd spent hours in the county courthouse basement digging through archives older than bell-bottoms. When I produced the original building permits, documents so ancient they felt like scrolls but carried the legal weight of Mount Rushmore, Dale's smug face crumbled faster than a cookie in milk. The man actually stuttered. But I wasn't done. During that same courthouse treasure hunt, I discovered something delicious about Meredith's perfect suburban palace. That Instagram-famous pool deck she constantly flaunted? Completely unpermitted, built without inspections, and violating every setback rule in the book. My counter-complaint hit her mailbox the next morning like a legal boomerang, complete with photos and measurements that would make a surveyor weep with joy. Irony so thick you could spread it on toast. Lily asked me that evening with the innocent wisdom only kids have, "Dad, why does the mean lady hate our chickens so much?" I told her sometimes people use rules as weapons when they can't win with honest conversation. A lesson I prayed she'd never need, but suspected she would. Dolores showed up the next day with homemade apple pie and gossip hotter than the crust. Apparently Meredith's developer husband had been making rounds at City Hall, smooth-talking about maximizing land use potential in our neck of the woods. The puzzle pieces clicked. This wasn't petty HOA tyranny. This was a land grab wearing a beige blazer. Grandpa always said when dealing with inspectors, collect documentation like a pack rat and photograph everything like a crime scene. Dale slithered away that afternoon without issuing a single citation, tail between his legs. But I could practically hear the gears grinding in Meredith's head. She'd lost round 1, so round 2 would be nuclear. Sure enough, my mailbox soon contained notice of an emergency HOA meeting scheduled for the following week. Agenda 1 item: immediate community safety concerns regarding non-compliant agricultural operations threatening property values and resident welfare. The woman was doubling down harder than a Vegas gambler on his last chip. Bethany's, wait, Meredith's emergency meeting was shadier than a back-alley poker game and twice as rigged. She scheduled it for 7 p.m. Thursday, peak dinner time when working parents are wrestling kids into pajamas, and somehow forgot to notify half the neighborhood, especially every blue-collar family who might side with me. Location: her living room, naturally, because nothing screams official business like conducting kangaroo court next to your wine fridge and Cabo vacation photos. When I walked in, the air reeked of vanilla candles trying to mask the stench of corruption. The deck was stacked tighter than a casino owner's favor. Meredith had packed the room with transplants who viewed our homestead like urbanites view roadkill, something unpleasant that needed immediate removal. These people bought $8 farm fresh eggs at Whole Foods while complaining about actual farms existing near their McMansions. "Ladies and gentlemen," Meredith proclaimed from behind her dining room table like a self-appointed Supreme Court justice, crystal chandelier casting dramatic shadows across her artificially concerned face. "We face an unprecedented health and safety crisis." She described our gentle chickens like they carried biological weapons instead of laying the freshest eggs this side of paradise. The performance would have won Oscars for creative fiction if it wasn't so obviously calculated to steal our livelihood. Mrs. Patterson claimed our rooster's dawn calls caused severe psychological trauma. Mr. Jenkins worried agricultural particulates might trigger his delicate allergies, completely ignoring he'd moved next to working land voluntarily. Then Meredith dropped her atomic bomb. A motion to assess our property $50,000 in special community improvement fees for remediation of agricultural nuisances. 50 grand, more than most honest families earn in a year, to fix problems that existed only in her suburban nightmare fantasies. Here's where her choreographed circus hit a legal brick wall. I'd been sitting quietly in the back, phone recording every procedural violation, while she trampled more rules than a toddler in a toy store. When the voting charade began, I stood and asked one beautifully simple question. "Could you please confirm we have the required quorum for this assessment vote?" The room went silent as a morgue at midnight. Meredith shuffled papers like she was hunting the Holy Grail, her Botox mask cracking to reveal raw panic. See, I'd memorized North Carolina HOA laws like scripture during my courthouse sessions. Special assessments over $1,000 require a supermajority with at least 75% of homeowners present or proxied. They had maybe 40% and 0 legitimate proxies. The vote was about as legal as printing your own money. While she scrambled, I produced my second weapon. A formal demand for complete HOA financial records spanning 2 years, plus an independent audit of all expenditures, especially payments to companies owned by board members or their families. That's when pattern recognition kicked in. The financial summary she'd been waving contained multiple large payments to Lancaster Development LLC. Same last name. Either the universe loved coincidences more than lottery winners, or Meredith had been funneling community money to her husband's construction company. The meeting imploded like a controlled demolition. Board members suddenly remembered urgent babysitter appointments. Even Mr. Jenkins developed emergency dog walking duties. Meredith tried maintaining authority while desperation rolled off her like cheap perfume in summer heat. "This meeting is adjourned pending legal review," she declared. "Fancy talk for, we're caught red-handed." Lily waited up past bedtime for battle reports. I explained that sometimes the best strategy against bullies is forcing them to follow their own rules, something they rarely bother learning because they assume nobody will challenge them. Dolores appeared the next morning with coffee and confirmation. Meredith's husband had been quietly buying surrounding properties through shell companies, circling our homestead like vultures. Development plans revealed a luxury subdivision called Pastoral Vista Estates, with our land converted into a community amenity space. Fancy words for stealing our life to build more beige boxes. The smoking gun? Email chains between Meredith, her husband, and a county commissioner discussing how to eliminate the agricultural eyesore for a projected $12 million profit. $12 million. That's what 3 generations of honest work were worth to these people. The harassment campaign kicked into high gear. Within days, unfamiliar vehicles parked across the street, guys in cheap suits photographing everything. Then secure community services materialized, rental cops in matching polos claiming authority under neighborhood watch provisions that existed only in Meredith's fever dream. They idled SUVs for hours, interrogating customers buying eggs and produced like they were smuggling contraband. My longtime buyers started fleeing. When they issued trespassing warnings to grandmas buying Sunday baking eggs, we'd officially crossed from harassment into economic terrorism. A little digging revealed Secure Community Services was owned by Meredith's husband's business partner. What are the odds? About the same as finding honest politicians at a fundraiser. But farmers and homesteaders, Don't survive generations without learning preparation beats panic. I installed legal security cameras covering every public area. The footage showed organized harassment patterns that could have been choreographed by the military. Dolores, with her 30 years at the county assessor's office, dropped the legal bomb. Private security can't detain people on public roads or restrict legitimate business. That's false imprisonment. Felony territory. My daughter Lily turned into a pint-sized Nancy Drew, tracking license plates and logging incidents with a dedication that would impress the FBI. Watching an 11-year-old master documentation no kid should need made me proud and heartbroken at the same time. Then came the breakthrough from the most unexpected source. Dolores rifling through old files in her spare bedroom like an archaeological dig. "Ethan, honey, you need to see this," she called one evening. Spread across her table were photocopied 2023 land transfer records showing Meredith's husband had systematically acquired surrounding properties through shell companies, positioning everything in a perfect circle around our homestead. The end game? Convert our land into the centerpiece of his luxury development. But the real kicker was the emails Dolores somehow acquired through her retired county employee network. Messages casually discussing how to eliminate the problem property for 40 to 60% value increase. The scope of corruption made my head spin. This wasn't petty HOA nonsense. This was coordinated real estate fraud involving county officials and systematic harassment designed to force desperate families to sell cheap. Other homesteads were facing identical pressure. Surprise tax assessments, sudden environmental probes. Every targeted property had one thing in common: prime development potential for Meredith's empire. I'd been so focused on defense I'd barely glanced at routine county mail. Buried in the stack was an official appointment letter I'd applied for months earlier and forgotten in the chaos. Interim County Zoning Commissioner. The irony was sweeter than fresh honey. The woman trying to bulldoze my life had no idea I now held authority over every development permit and zoning appeal in the county, including her husband's entire operation. My agricultural law specialist Jasmine practically purred when I showed her the letter. "This changes everything. You're not just defending anymore. You're positioned to investigate and halt their whole scheme." We formed the Evergreen Heritage Coalition right there in my barn. Local homesteaders brought evidence, decades of wisdom, and pure rural stubbornness. Our strategy crystallized around North Carolina's Agricultural Protection Act and federal civil rights statutes. Systematic campaigns to force land sales through intimidation now carried triple damages. Plus, when HOAs primarily benefit private developers instead of residents, they lose tax-exempt status and face fraud charges. The financial trail to Meredith's husband's companies could trigger IRS hell. Word travels faster than gossip in small towns. Within 24 hours, Meredith discovered through courthouse chatter that the homeowner she'd been terrorizing now controlled her husband's permits. Her reaction was more spectacular than 4th of July fireworks. She launched a smear campaign claiming unprecedented conflict of interest before I'd made a single decision. The irony burned hotter than asphalt. A woman who'd weaponized the HOA for personal profit now lecturing others about ethics. Her sabotage escalated. Anonymous complaints to state agriculture, mysterious irrigation failures, diesel fuel suddenly appearing in our pond. But every desperate move created evidence. The state inspector who showed up turned out to be an old college buddy who saw through the fiction instantly. My independent review panel, 3 retired judges, 2 scientists, requested comprehensive environmental impact studies for all pending developments. Suddenly Meredith's husband faced months of delays and 6-figure bills. Then came the final gambit at 5:47 a.m. On a Tuesday. Earth-shaking vibrations rattled windows. 10 bulldozers formed a perfect siege around our property, trapping everything inside. Meredith stood at the center clutching a megaphone, perfectly styled hair looking comical against industrial destruction. "By emergency order of the Evergreen Meadows Health and Safety Committee," she shrieked. "This property is under immediate quarantine due to confirmed agricultural health violations." She'd hired her husband's construction company for the show of force, live-streaming the whole spectacle on social media like it would legitimize illegal detention and animal cruelty. Lily emerged with her phone, live-streaming her own commentary. The mean lady trapped our horses so they can't get water. She says it's for safety, but look how scared they are. The video exploded. Dolores mobilized her network. Jasmine filed emergency restraining orders listing false imprisonment, animal cruelty, obstruction of commerce. Sheriff's cruisers, animal welfare officers, and FBI agents rolled in like cavalry. Sheriff Bradley stepped out and asked for documentation of this emergency. Meredith's face went white. I stepped forward with my commissioner credentials. As interim zoning commissioner, I'm declaring this an official agricultural heritage preservation zone under emergency powers. All development permits for Lancaster Development LLC are suspended pending federal review. These bulldozers represent illegal obstruction of protected land use. I'm ordering immediate removal. Meredith's meltdown was legendary. This is corruption, she screamed on live TV, accidentally confessing the whole scheme. Handcuffs clicked. FBI agents seized HOA records. Bulldozer operators suddenly remembered they had lawyers on speed dial. County commissioner involved in the emails resigned in disgrace. The HOA dissolved when members realized they'd been funding Meredith's personal vendetta. 6 months later, justice tasted sweeter than our own honey. Meredith pleaded guilty to multiple felonies and paid fines that funded agricultural preservation programs. Her husband's empire collapsed under federal fraud charges. Our homestead became the Evergreen Heritage Education Center. City kids learning food doesn't come from grocery stores. Lily's essay about standing up to bullies went national. The cooperative we formed with 8 other saved homesteads now commands premium prices from people who value real over Instagram-filtered perfection. Save Our Homesteads nonprofit has already protected 17 family properties across 3 states. Agricultural law schools teach our case. HOA reform bills cited as proof that harassment carries real consequences. So tell me, was Meredith just enforcing rules like she claimed? Or was the real crime using an HOA as a personal land grab weapon while hiding behind smiles and clipboards? Drop your thoughts below. Who's the true villain here, the chickens or the Karen with the bulldozers? Let's hear it.